Beggar invited a rich girl on a date. She had no idea what it would lead to. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Storyist. Today, I will tell you about a beggar who invited a rich girl on a date. She had no idea what it would lead to. Watch the video until the end to find out what happened and why it turned out to be the most important date of her life. Our story today begins in a large city with a young woman on her way to work. Though young, the woman had already managed to climb pretty high in the business world and was fairly rich for her age. She wore very nice clothes, including a bright red jacket that she wore every day, and lived in a large apartment uptown. Every day to get to work, she had to take the subway and then walk the last few blocks. She grew up here, in the city, so she knew her way around and felt comfortable walking alone, even past all the homeless people in the alleys. Today, like usual, she put on her headphones and did her best to ignore the hobos and beggars calling out to her asking for money. There was one homeless man in particular, though, who caught her eye that day. She had seen him before, always standing on his own away from the others, with a sign that simply said, "Need money for food." But today, he had a new sign that said, "I almost have enough, just need a little more." She was a little curious what he meant, but she didn't want to stop to ask. So she pulled her red jacket closer around her and continued on to work. The next day was a Friday. The woman was looking forward to the weekend as she headed to work, even though she didn't have any plans yet. She hadn't had a boyfriend since high school and wasn't really the type to go out alone. Little did she know, she would be making some plans soon. As she walked to work, she passed the homeless man again. This time, though, his sign stopped her dead in her tracks. The man was looking straight at her, holding a sign that said, "Woman in red, will you go out to dinner with me?" Surprised and a little frightened, the woman quickly resumed walking, glancing back over her shoulder. The man looked sad, but didn't make any move to try and follow her. She spent the whole day at work thinking about the beggar with the sign. Why in the world would a homeless man be asking her on a date? Her mind raced through the possibilities. Was he obsessed? Was he just trying to get a free meal? But then, she remembered the earlier signs. Need money for food. And then, I almost have enough, just need a little more. She had to admit, she was curious about him. He always stood apart from the other hobos, and he didn't really seem threatening. She eventually decided that if he was still there when she walked home after work, she would talk to him about it. Finally, the end of the day came. The woman tidied up her desk, put on her jacket, and head out of the office. Sure enough, when she got to the alley, the homeless man was there again with his sign. "Woman in red, will you go out to dinner with me?" He was looking right at her. But this time, the woman thought she saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes, along with the usual sadness. She gathered her courage and walked over to him. She could tell as she approached that as nervous as she might have been, he was even more anxious about it. He started to speak softly, fumbling over his words. Hello, miss. He trailed off and tried to start again. "I was just wondering if..." But the woman interrupted him with a smile. "If I wanted to go get some dinner? Well, I just got off work, so I am pretty hungry. Where do you have in mind?" The man's face brightened. "Oh, really? I thought for sure you were going to say no," he said. His nervousness melted away as he saw her friendly smile. "You have the prettiest smile, miss." She blushed, and he said, "Right this way. I know a pizza place that I think you'll love. And don't worry, I'm buying. I've been saving up for this for a while now." "Okay," she said. I haven't had a pizza since I was in high school," she thought to herself. But she let the man take her by the hand and led her down the street away from the alley. His hands were rough, but his grip was surprisingly gentle, and he eventually guided her to a familiar place. She laughed out loud as they walked into the pizzeria. "This was my favorite place when I was a kid," she said. The man just grinned and got them a table. The woman didn't even need to look at the menu. She always got the same thing when she came as a kid: pepperoni and bacon with extra Asiago cheese. She figured she'd get a small so that the man could get whatever he wanted separately. But when the waiter came to take their order, the beggar spoke up first. "We'll share a large," he said. "Pepperoni and bacon with extra Asiago, please." The woman was dumbfounded. "All right," she said after the waiter left. "What's your story?" The man grinned at her again and began to explain. He said he'd gone to high school in the city here, and when he graduated, he joined the army instead of going into college like most of his friends. While overseas, the helicopter that he was being transported in crashed behind enemy lines. He and the rest of the survivors were trapped in a vicious battle with the enemy until rescue finally arrived. He said he had lost a lot of his friends that day and almost gave up. "What kept me going," he said, "was the memories from back home, from school. I thought about my high school girlfriend and her favorite pizza." The woman started to cry, realizing what was happening and who exactly the man was. He continued saying, "I promised myself I was going to make it out of there so I could take her out for a pizza and see her beautiful smile again. I had a really hard time, though, once I got out of the army. I couldn't keep a job. I kept flashing back to that night to the crash. I ended up on the streets, and then I saw you and—" He trailed off, looking down at his plate. She could see that same sadness starting to come back into his eyes. "I thought for sure that you'd just look right through me. I was afraid it had all been for nothing." She reached out and grabbed his hand. "But you're here now. You made it." She smiled that warm, beautiful smile again. "I'm sorry I didn't recognize you," she said. "You've changed so much since then." "It's okay," he said, and the two of them spent the rest of the evening catching up and eating delicious pizza. After dinner, she agreed to meet with him the following day. She helped get him cleaned up and then used her business connections to get him a job starting the next Monday. Soon, the man was back on his feet again, and he and the woman started dating regularly. It wasn't long before he asked her to marry him. She happily said yes, and they started a family in the city. Eventually, they earned enough money to quit their jobs and buy the pizza restaurant that had brought them back together. Appearances can often be deceiving. You never know who's on the other side of a sad pair of eyes. Sometimes, all someone needs is a chance, and a little bit of kindness shown to a stranger can not only change their life, but change yours too. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And make sure you turn on the notification bell. We'll see you at the next story.